Hi, I'm Brent Hazelton, Milwaukee Chamber Theatre's incoming artistic director. Alongside many theaters and artists, we've been creating online content while our stages are dark in an effort to expand the ways in which we are engaging our audience in conversations about how our work is made and to help them get to know a little better some of the people who make it. I'm excited to share this first installment in another of our new series at Chamber. At its core, theater is about building community, and it is our hope that with this series we might bring the theater community, practitioners and audiences alike, just a bit closer together, and to make a small contribution to the larger universe of content that's helping to tide us all over until we can share our community spaces once again. We'll be releasing a new installment in the series every Sunday afternoon, so keep an eye out. Thank you for checking in. Enjoy.
Oh, now it's recording. Now I'm going to wait for a second so I can give you a clean start. Hi, everybody. How's it going? Here with Kimberly Colburn, my dear friend, and Isaac Gomez, my dear newer friend. We'll say newer.
Yeah, makes sense.
Kimberly is the former literary manager at Actors Theatre of Louisville, former literary director at South Coast Rep, and currently a freelance dramaturg based in Canada, in Toronto. Not exactly known for its hotbed of new play development, but she will single-handedly change that because when she was working in American new play development, we were always fond of reminding her that she was probably one of the three most important people in American new
I
play
can't believe you're
development.
saying that. We're gonna put this on the internet. Jesus.
You're
It's
not
not
saying it, I'm
untrue.
saying it for you, so it's okay.
I second it, so that's all I'm saying.
Good. Isaac Gomez is a playwright, and, well, a writer in all mediums, not just play. It's coming off a stint of Narcos right now. Not started, but was at one point the director of new play development at Victory Gardens Theater in
I feel like
Chicago.
started. You were like 22.
I was 22. Don't tell anyone. You can't
You
tell
were.
anyone that.
He's still
It's a
kind of
secret.
22, really.
No, I'm not.
Oh,
Just
he
those
is
Friends.
cheeks.
22. Look at his
Anyway,
little face.
Older.
Look at his
so
beautiful little face.
stop complimenting one another. Let me get through this. You're lovely people. So Kimberly and Isaac are here to answer the question, what is dramaturgy? I should also say about Isaac, before we get too much further, that we are very happy at Milwaukee Chamber Theatre to be producing his play The Way She Spoke in our 2021 season, assuming that we have a 2021 season. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll figure something out. Anyway, so what is dramaturgy? We're going to come at that later. But for now, so there's extant play dramaturgy and there's new play dramaturgy, right?
Yes.
Great. So differences. What's new play dramaturgy, Kimberly Colburn? What do you do?
So I have recently taken the moniker of story editor, which I borrowed from television and the
Yeah,
television
makes sense.
industry, because I think it makes more sense to me, and it's something that translates as a medium to the layperson. Like if you have no involvement of the arts whatsoever, story editor is something makes sense to you, and dramaturg does not. And I have, frankly, between just you, me, and the internet, always disliked the term dramaturg because of that fact. It's too esoteric, and Gottfried Lexing be damned. I'm sorry.
Well, Gottfried, let's hoist one for Gottfried. Father of modern dramaturgy, whether we like him or not.
The first dramaturg apparently, but Hamburg Theater, and then he like tanked it, I think, because 3 years later they closed. So question marks. I think that new play dramaturgs and extant material dramaturgs are different things, and I will actually use a metaphor, which as a Chicagoan, Isaac, you may have problems with, and I apologize. But here's my metaphor. The beach. The beach is two different things. If you live on a Great Lake, you think it's a beach. It's not a beach.
But it actually is a beach. It's just
not
a beach.
It's not an ocean beach, which is a totally different thing.
I will say
different things. They're different things.
All right, they're different things. We understand. How are they different? Isaac, please help us out. what is the role of a dramaturg on an extant play, right? So when we say new play, we mean a play that's being created for the first time in the room in that moment. The writer's there. So say you're doing, I don't know, Death of a Salesman. What is the role of the dramaturg on that extant play that already exists?
In a traditional context, that typically involves providing research of the time, of the artist, of the references within the play itself for the artists involved. So, as you go into a rehearsal process, and then similarly, but edited, probably more curated for the audience point of view, on top of or in addition to the institution's sort of thought process around the decision to program that play, as well as any sort of necessary context or useful information about the world of the play that an audience may need to receive it in its full intentionality.
Kimberly Colburn, who does the dramaturg serve?
The playwright.
Who else does the dramaturg serve?
Nope, just the playwright.
Isaac Gomez, who does the dramaturg serve?
I believe the dramaturg serves the playwright. So this, you can't ask me this question, Brent, because I have two different contexts. As a playwright, I also believe the dramaturg
is it two different definitions of dramaturg?
Thank you. That is yes, that's a good clarification, because if it's a new play, I also believe the dramaturg's role is to serve the playwright first and foremost.
And that's why I can only answer that way, because I only do new plays.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually realize I don't really do, even when I worked at the Beach, all of their plays were new.
Yeah, I've only really ever done new play stuff myself too.
I'm just realizing that. Whoa.
So all right, so let's speculating then, hypothetically, in the world of extant play dramaturgy, who does the dramaturg serve?
The production would be then my answer.
Okay.
I think still the playwright.
I don't know, because if the playwright's dead, then I go, this is me. Like, I'm like Arthur Miller. I can assume I know what you meant, girl, but I don't know, because I didn't talk to you.
I agree. I cannot talk to you, Arthur Miller. But that's the same thing as Shakespeare and cutting Shakespeare. I don't think that Shakespeare will want to be cut in his time. But if he lived today, he would fucking cut his plays to 90 minutes with no rendition. Do you hear what I'm saying?
She'd probably rewrite them, honestly. I'm not even going to lie about that.
All the things.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Isaac Gomez. So we talk about, in a new play world, the dramaturg serving the playwright. What service is the dramaturg providing to the playwright?
The best, I think, dramaturg-playwright relationship I've experienced as a playwright, and I will say was not true of my own methodology when I was a dramaturg, unfortunately, largely because when you work within an institution, there are other needs that sometimes conflict with the creative process, and that can often be, audience engagement, marketing, all of that stuff. Like, there are a lot of factors involved. But when I was a play that I had in Chicago happened earlier this year, my dramaturg, so this is a play that this is relevant, I promise I'll try to go as quickly as I can. This is a play that is called The Leopard Play, or Sad Songs for Lost Boys, which is my only play of all Latino men that is my exploration of trauma that I've experienced growing up in a conservative Catholic household as a gay Mexican, in which we see a young man coming home after having been gone for 10 years, the relationships with the men in his life, within his father, his uncles, and then his sexual and intimate relationships with the men in his life that he's left back at the border, and how the two sort of are in relation to each other, the way in which I've adopted behavior from my family and then have used it onto other men in my sexual and intimate relationships. And so because so much of this play in particular was pulled from memory and personal experiences and trauma, my dramaturg, where they were incredibly useful was, one, they identified with the cultural context of my existence. So the dramaturg is a queer Latinx dramaturg, writer, brilliant human, Lucas Garcia, phenomenal dramaturg, and writer, also incredible playwright. And a lot of what they did was they told me what I had. So I remember, for example, one of our very first meetings after reading the first draft of the play, they said to me, well, Isaac, I think your play is about colonialism. And I was very confused. I was like, what are you talking about? And they were like, well, in these pages, here's what I'm seeing. And these are colonialist structures. And so for me, I was receiving from your subconscious a message about colonialism. And then I was like, oh, and then all of a sudden it was in light, like I saw a light bulb switch, because I didn't intend that, but it was certainly, it is in the play, it was in the play. And so then I was able to do edits with that in mind. And every time we revisited something, my dramaturg was always just a mirror. I never actually knew Lucas's opinion on anything. I really didn't. I was always like, do you like this? And they're like, do you like this? You know, like I really, really oddly never knew. And but they did such a brilliant job. I've never felt such an investment in a way in which, because it was so personal for them as well, that they were able to really work through the text and the production itself and saying, like, this is communicating this. Is this what you want? And then I trust them because I've been a dramaturg before, and I know they're not wrong. So when I take a step back and I allow myself to look at the play as my own dramaturg, I can say, dang, I didn't realize that this one line would read like this, but it can. And then I have to look inward and go, am I okay with that? You know, and then I make the decision as the playwright to move forward in one direction or another. So that's largely how I see the dramaturg living playwright relationship, is a mirror, I hope.
What is the greatest sense of victory for a dramaturg?
No one knows that you exist. They just love the play.
Isaac?
Because I agree with you, but I'm also a Leo moon. So for me, it's like, I actually would like a little more credit for the hard work that I did on this play.
Yeah, you get a buy on the program.
But that's me. But I think for me, the greatest victory, for me, I don't think this is true of all dramaturgs. For me, the greatest victory is when I'm able to help a playwright have that light bulb moment, like the one I just articulated.
Mm-hmm.
Is when I can be that mirror for them, and then I can literally see them go, and then they're just like, they can't even talk to me anymore. They're like, I got it, and then I go, okay, go do it. Call me later. Let's talk about it.
Yes, but
yeah, say it.
It's actually the moment after. It's like they've written, and then a year later, and they're talking about it, and they're talking about that light bulb moment. They don't even remember that you're there. That literally happened to me yesterday. And it was amazing, because I was like, oh, I was there. Like, you're saying what I said. That's fucking amazing. You don't even remember that I was the one that said that.
That doesn't bother you? That doesn't bother you?
No, not at all. I want to help people make better art. That's all I want to do. That's all I ever wanted to do. I want to make sure that the art that I want exists in the world. That's why I do this.
All right, so we've been talking about dramaturgy as an act, as a thing that is done. What do we mean when we talk about the dramaturgy of a thing, right? Like, we're reading a play and we say, well, dramaturgically that doesn't quite stack up, or the dramaturgy of that doesn't square, isn't what it wants to be.
How the playwright has achieved their goals.
Okay.
For me, it's about thought process. So if I go, like, it's about clarity of thought process. So when I say, well, dramaturgically it tracks, or dramaturgically I'm unsure of this, it's because I feel like there's a disconnect in you know, a ladder, but not in the way, like, I have to emphasize, like, not in the way of like Western Aristotelian, like Aristotle's poetic storytelling. I don't mean that. Like, I can see a thought process that's non-linear, but if I need to know that this character made this choice that was unexpected because of this moment. When I see a huge gap, I go, oh, and it's not to say that isn't true of life. That can certainly be true. But then as an audience, I want to know dramaturgically, why was this something I was supposed to experience? And sometimes, as Kimberly just articulated, like the playwright may not want that for me. And as an audience, I have to be okay with that. I think the difference is, the challenge is knowing how and when is that, like, how do you know when it's intentional? You know what I mean? Like, how do you know, as an audience member, sometimes I struggle because I'm like, well, I think that was intentional, but there wasn't much outside of this one moment that lets me believe it was intentional, but maybe I missed it, and then, then you go down these rabbit holes.
All right, so role of a dramaturg, translate something into a context that everyone can understand, create clarity of intention. What else?
Mirror. I just keep coming back to this mirror. A mirror for the playwright.
So
What about the dramaturg's relationship to the community, right? Sort of taking the notion of institutional theater first. Let's put it in that context, right? That there's a building that has a reputation and that has subscribers and that does plays, and dramaturgs in those spaces have to function in some sort of relationship to an audience or a larger community. What is that? Beyond just writing like a program note, right?
Yeah, for me, it's I characterize this as my practice in the form of civic dramaturgy, which is dramaturgical practices through a socio-political framework. And what this entails is, first and foremost, it starts actually in the creative room, the creative team in the rehearsal process before you even bring in audiences, because it's about understanding the social and political implications of the work. And so it's making sure, like, okay, like, even in a play as seemingly harmless as, I can't think of one, because I think every play, even the fun ones, are like, they have a message to them that speaks to something even to like a greater capacity. Like, that's what art does. Even playwrights who, are very proud to say, oh, I don't write political plays. I'm like, well, this came from somewhere, and so I think you do, and so the first step is identifying what those are, and then where is there a gap in that knowledge and in that perspective in a rehearsal room. So if I'm doing a play that centers on the experiences of Muslim women, and the cast largely does identify as Muslim, but not in the same way as the play does, then how can I bring in religious leaders of the faith into the room from a variety of access points? So it's not just one, right? To provide insight and still or elicit conversation around these themes. And then how can those partners come back to the theater as part of like an audience engagement capacity? And then in what ways can those partners then, this is the hard part, engage in plays that are not about Islam, so that they feel that they weren't just tokenized or utilized for their like lived experience in this one moment in time, but rather are a valuable member of a community. And the way in which, like, if you're truly trying to create art from a community POV and perspective, like, how are members of said community leading that charge and leading that initiative is a question.
Don't forget to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all of the work that we do, particularly in a cross-cultural perspective, is so incredibly important. And let's build every single community that we can. But also, don't forget that the play is funny. But if the play is funny, it might be funny. You should laugh. Don't forget about that. It will probably help you cry if it also is something that is sad. That's all. Just don't forget the entertainment aspect of we are making something to be consumed as.
What else? I'm trying to think of other questions. I think
I feel like we're pretty much tapped out, because
I think we hit it.
at the end of the day, like, that is what dramaturgy is
Exactly.
If you
have
a question that you don't know how to answer, you finish your wine and you just are like,
you go home.
That's a good question. And then you say, thanks for coming. we're ending this topic.
Yeah. Exactly.
And on that note, thanks for coming. We're ending this talk back. Thank you to New Glarus Brewing Company for me personally, and the delightful 2 women lager. Super
I
drinkable.
would also like to thank the people that invented bourbon.
Yes. And I'd like to thank Justin, wherever you are.
Mm.
You're in my heart. I appreciate you.
Justin. Oh, God.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, friends. We will be back shortly sometime with another episode of Drunk Dramaturgy.